On today's TK Friday episode, it is depth and detail. This is a full edit. You can download the image file along with the PDF notes. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Hey, it's TK Friday again. Thank you for joining me today. On today's episode, I have another image by Carlo Freddi, and this is the Adda River. I hope I'm saying that right. I believe it's in North Italy. It's a beautiful, quiet scene. I'm going to show you how we can add depth and detail into this scene today using the TK8 plugin for Photoshop. If you don't yet own the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, it's only $29. I'll have a link right below this video in the description. Just click on that, and that'll take you to Tony Kuiper's web store. And you can use my promo code DK15. You'll save 15% off anything on Tony Kuiper's web store, including training videos. And when you do that, it helps support the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and it helps me to keep these videos coming to you each and every TK Friday. If you're new to TK8, I recommend the TK8 combo where you get the TK8 plugin plus a video guide for $49. It's a great value and a great starting point if you're new to the TK8 plugin for Photoshop. I highly recommend it. In the description below this video, there will be a Dropbox link. There you can download the PDF notes for today's tutorial, the full edit, as well as the image file. And I have something new to share with you today. I found a new way of adding gradients to the top and bottom of your image using the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, which is really cool, so you don't want to miss that. And also, please leave comments and questions. We all want to hear from you. And also, like, share, and subscribe. This helps support the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. And for that, I thank you. This image started out in Lightroom. I added a linear profile to it and made some basic corrections. I think I adjusted the temperature and tint just slightly. I like the blue and the pink magenta feel to the image, and it's really beautiful and quiet. I want to keep this quiet feel to it. I added some lens corrections and also removed chromatic aberrations. And that's basically all I did to it, and then I brought it right into Photoshop, and here is where we get started. And again, I want to keep the nice, quiet, peaceful, tranquil feel to this image. So let's see what we can do with it today. Also, if you have any submissions for me, if you have any images you'd like me to edit on the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, in the description below this video at the very bottom is a contact link. Click that and get in touch with me. I'd love to edit one of your images. Now, what's my first step? You guessed it, balance and contrast. So, Luminosity Masks, I get a MIDS 3, output it to a color grading tool. And all this does, MIDS 3, is protects the highlights and shadows from clipping. And now we're going to make some adjustments. So I'll start with midtones. Click on the midtone block, and I'm just going to open up the midtones just a little bit, not too much. I want to keep the quiet feel to this image. And then the shadows, I'm just going to take the shadows to the left just to darken them up just a tiny little bit. And then we're going to go with the highlights, and I'm going to take the highlights to right about here. I think that looks good. And we have this nice pinkish magenta here, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more magenta to those highlights. Maybe somewhere right around there. And I'm going to go back to midtones and just give them a little bit of a pink cast. Something like that. But I think that's a beautiful little color palette. But I think I want a little bit more of that pink to come out. So let me X out of the color grading tool and let's click on this icon, which opens up the color picker, and we can make a color mask. And let's find a tone that we like. Maybe somewhere right around here. Let's click OK. And now we can see what we have here. Let's go ahead and lighten that up. I'm going to lighten it up to maybe right around here. And I think that's all I want to do. Let's output it to a hue saturation adjustment layer. And let's give it some extra saturation. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And I think I'm going to go up a little bit more. How does 49 grab you? Okay, here's a before and here's an after. Isn't this such a beautiful, quiet scene? And as I said, I just want to keep it this way. The next thing I want to do is see this beautiful fog back here. I want to lighten it up a little bit just to draw emphasis to it. And to do that, now I can either get a curves adjustment layer or a color grading tool. I'm going to choose a color grading tool, not that I'm going to use it, but just to show you that you can. So let's go ahead and click on the color grading tool. Now you must click the plus after you do that to add it. And what I'm going to do is use a screen blend mode to lighten up this area back here. But the first thing I want to do is put a black mask here, because when I click on screen, I don't want to see the image go all light. So now I'm going to click screen and we don't see anything happening here. If I click this X here, you can see what that effect looks like, right? But that kind of blows my mind when I see that. So I'd rather not see it and be influenced by it. So I like to put the black mask on it first. Now let's X out of the color grading tool so we can see the multi-mask panel. And what I want to do is grab a zone mask. So click this icon. And what we want to do is find some fog that we can use to help us make our selection. And I think this area right around in here represents that fog. So I'm going to click right here and click OK. And that gets the foggy area. Now we need to refine this mask a little bit. So I'm going to do what I call tighten and lighten. I'm going to bring this in and tighten that up so I can really just get that foggy area. And then I'm going to take this slider, this brightness slider, and lighten that up a bit, right like that. And then what we need to do is output this to a black mask. And remember, this is only here just so I don't see the lightening of the entire image. So we want to output to a black mask, painting through a selection with a white brush, because I want to hand paint this in. Now with a white brush I'm going to start at 20% opacity. I have a nice soft edge brush, 0% hardness. I'm going to make it smaller. And this is where you get to be an artist, right? So you could come in here and just lighten up foggy areas. And you got that selection to help you. And it's only going to get those lighter areas. So we just want to bring them up, and you can lift your brush and paint over areas again. Each time you paint over it, it gets lighter. Just try to think what is pleasing to the eye. Okay? And so we're just going to paint away in here, and I'll just paint over all that area. But see how that fog just really starts to come out? Now I can hit these areas again and make them a little lighter, and I'm going to do some dodging and burning later, some freehand dodging and burning, and that's where you can really make this image sing. But this is a good starting point, because this is going to help you with the dodging and burning process, because what it's going to do is it's going to let you see the areas that you want to work with. And you'll see that as we get to that point. So I'm going to continue and out on this water here a little bit along this shoreline. Whoops, I didn't like that. I'm just going to do a Command or Control Z, or you could hit this back arrow on the CX or combo panel and just undo that. I didn't like that. I'm going to drop down to 10% now so I can be a little more, I don't know, just a little more gentle on what I'm applying here. And I might come in this entire water here and just paint over this like this, just so we can really see that fog. Take your time, and you can always undo a step if you don't like it. I'm going to go to 0.5. That's the shortcut for going down to 5%, and just get a little bit of this out in here as well. But let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's after. But see how we have some nice fog happening there? Now, if you got your effect too strong, you always have the opacity that you can take it off. And I like to take it the whole way off and then just build it up slowly. Oh, I went too fast there. But just a little bit at a time. Just get it to where it looks really nice. And I think I'm going to go to around 89%. Now, here is the before and now the after, and I like it. Now, you'll notice we still have a selection here, so let's get rid of that selection by clicking this icon on the CX or Combo panel. It just deselects your selection. But isn't the CX and Combo panel really great for speeding up your workflow? I love it. And remember, this is a color grading tool, so if we wanted to add any color grading to that fog, we could. I really don't want to, but I just want you to know that you could use a curves or a color grading tool. They're both using curves, by the way, for that lightening effect. And I'm only using curves to get a screen blend mode off it. I could have used the level or any one of the adjustment layers pretty much. Now remember, things that are closer to us are darker. So see these trees on both sides here? I can darken these up a little bit just to bring some emphasis to them, and I think that'll look really nice. Now to darken, I'm going to use that same trick where I get either a curves adjustment or a color grading tool. I'm just going to go with a curves adjustment. I'm going to put a black mask on it, but instead of lightening, I want to darken. So here's your two modes. And you notice I have mine in blue here so you can find them very easily. And to get these to change, just right click on them and you can color code them. Right click again on your mouse and you can color code them again. But instead of screen, I'm going to click multiply. But I don't see the effect, remember, because I have a black mask on here. I'll close this properties panel because I don't need it. And now I have to select these. Now these are dark tones, so I'm going to try a luminosity mask. So click on the luminosity mask icon. And then we want to really isolate these really darker tones. So let's go with, here's darks 1. And what I like to do is keep moving down. Darks 2, here's darks 3. I'm getting closer. Darks 4. And that's getting better. Darks 5. Even better, but I'm still picking up some of this back here. I'm going to go to dark 6 because I have a levels adjustment that I can work with. So let's click on this tool right here. This opens up a levels adjustment, and now we can refine this. So I'm going to start by taking this highlight slider and starting to drag it to the left and see how they get lighter. I'm going to take the midtones and move it over a little bit. They get even lighter. And then I'm going to take the shadow slider and move it to the right. And see how I can really isolate those. And I can even move this over a little bit more to make them a little lighter. And maybe this too. And maybe pull back on this shadows a little bit to something right around there. And I even pick up some shadows down here I could work with. I'll close this properties panel by clicking right here. And now we need to output this. So we're going to output it to a black mask painting with a white brush through a selection, and there it is right there. And this time I'm going to take my opacity up to like 50%. So just type your 5 key. That gets you to 50%. And with a decent sized brush, I can start, just painting on these guys and darkening them up. And I might hit it a second time. Okay, and if you want to see what your selection looks like, click this icon right here. This is for editing a selection. You can see what areas you can work with. See, I got some shadows, all these trees and these trees over here. And then click this icon to load that selection back up. I went ahead and sped up the video, but I'm just painting over these areas just to bring out these darker areas and even in the shadows. And I'm looking at the before and after as I go along here just to see how it's going. And again, you just want to take your time, but I think this is really helping to add the depth into the image. And I am done with that. And now let's take a look. Here is the before. And now here is the after. But I really like the results that I'm getting. And remember, you always have this opacity that you can pull it back if it's too strong. But I like it. I'm going to leave it at 100%. This is a non-destructive workflow. We can go back and rework any of our layers, readjust them at any time, which is really great. And now what I think I want to do is see some of these trees back in here. I just want to darken them up slightly, but stay away from these distant trees. Because remember, we're building depth. And so we're dark. We won't be quite as dark here, and we're going to leave this area alone because it's beautiful just the way it is. Now take note, this selection indicator tells us we have selection. We got to get rid of it, so click this icon on the CX or combo panel to deselect. And now I'm going to get a curves adjustment, another black mask, and another multiply blend mode. And I'll use the luminosity mask again, so click here. Let's go to darks 1, darks 2. We're going to try to isolate them. Darks 3. Darks 4, getting closer, and darks 5. Darks 5, yeah, isolates these beautifully. And also some of these sticks up in the water I want to get as well. So we need to refine. So click on your levels adjustment. I'm going to take the highlight slider and drag it really far over to the left, just so I can really lighten these up. I don't care what's happening in these other areas here. And I think I got it. I'm going to take the midtones and slide it over just a little bit, not much. Maybe drag the highlights over. Right about there, I think is good. And now we need to output it. So let's output it to a black mask, white brush, painting through a selection. And now I think an opacity of like 50%. I could have a nice big brush because I have very good isolation. So I'm going to type my 5 key to get 50% and just paint over these one time. I'm going to come over here and paint these guys back in here. I'm going to hit them another time and this another time. Let's take a look. Here is the before and here is the after. Before and after. But see, they're not as dark as these, and we're creating depth. But these are kind of interesting features in the image, and I want to bring those out, and I think I've got it. But I almost forgot these sticks up here. We have to get those. If we click on the edit selection icon, we can see that they're part of my selection as well. So what I can do is, well, let's load this back up as a selection. And now I'm going to go ahead and paint over these. 1, 2. These are closer so they can be a little darker. 1, 2, 3. I'll hit this one more time. And now let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. And I got too much of this tree over here. So if we click this icon here, we can see right over in here. If we go to black paint, I'm just going to grab my black paint brush and I'm just going to paint over this a couple times. Now remember, my selection is still there. So now let's take a look at it. Yeah, that looks better. Here is the before and here is the after. And if that's too strong, we could pull this back just a little bit. And I think I will. I think I'm going to bring it back to about 90. Again, before and after. And so far, so good. The next thing I want to do, see these shadow reflections in the water. They're really beautiful, but some of these I'd like to bring out a little bit stronger. So what we'll do is, now we still have a selection here, so let's get rid of that selection. Very important. Click right here on the CX combo panel. And again, we're going to go with a curves adjustment. We're going to get a black mask and multiply blend mode. That's the best way of darkening things. Now we got to pick a luminosity mask, so click on the luminosity mask and we'll run through the masks. Here's darks 1. Darks 2, remember we're trying to isolate these reflections. Darks 3, getting closer, and darks 4. Darks 4 gives us the best isolation of these tree reflections. And let's refine it a bit by clicking on the levels adjustment. I'm going to drag the highlight slider way over to somewhere right in there and take my shadow slider and pull it in. And I might even bump back the midtones a little bit to something like that. Remember, we're painting through a selection and I can just build this up by lifting my brush and painting again. And don't worry about all this mess over here and here because we're only interested in these reflections. So let's output it to a black mask, white brush, painting through a selection. Let's get rid of the properties panel. We don't need to see it up here. And I think I'm going to use an opacity of like 30%. So just type your 3 key on your keyboard, make this brush a little smaller, and let's paint over these. Now remember, every time I lift my brush, which I'm doing, every time I paint down, I've lifted my brush. And I'm just trying to bring out some of these reflections. And just like that, I think I've got it. Let me go ahead and take a look. Here is the before and here is the after. I know it's subtle, before and after. Let me paint down here a few more times. I'm going to go to 100%. I think I can go to 100% here. Get here, get here. I'm staying away from these sticks in the water or branches in the water. Okay, so let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. If you ever want to see your mask, click this icon right here in the CX combo panel, and that's what we painted right there. Darkening those tree reflections has added some more visual interest to this image. Now you notice we still have a selection. Let's go ahead and deselect it. The next part is going to be how to add a gradient in a really interesting way, which I think you're really going to enjoy. Most landscape images look good when you close off the bottom of the image by adding a darken gradient as well as the top part. We're going to start with the bottom part first. So what I'm going to do is a curves adjustment layer, black mask, again another multiply blend mode for darkening. And here's the twist. I'm going to get a luminosity mask. It's going to be a lights one because I only want to darken the light areas, but I want to stay away from the darker areas. We're going to load that as a selection. So you click this icon right here. That loads it as a selection. Now make sure you have white paint on top. Grab your gradient tool and hold your shift key down. It constrains it to keep it horizontal here. So hold your shift key down and we're just going to drag up like this. Right to about here. We can experiment. Yeah, and I think that looks good. Here is the before and here's the after, but let's take a look at this mask. Here's what the mask looks like, but you notice how it's only getting the light areas and it's protecting the dark. I didn't know this would work this way, but it does, and I was pretty impressed. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this technique for gradients. It'll solve a lot of problems, especially when you have reflections in water or trees up in the sky. You can pick the right mask to protect those areas. I'll click this icon again so we can see our image, and I think it's too strong, so I'm going to take it the whole way off and build it up slowly. And I think maybe right here around 50%. Here is the before and here is after. But you see how it just closes this off and keeps us in the frame. Now we're going to do the same thing to the top. Don't forget to deselect your selection by clicking this icon on the CX or combo panel. And we're going to do the same thing. Get a curves adjustment layer. Going to get a black mask. Multiply blend mode. Go back to luminosity masks. Lights 1. Output it to a selection. And we can get rid of this properties panel. We don't need it. Get it out of the way. And make sure you have your gradient tool. Hold your shift key down to constrain it and pull straight down on it. And I think I'm going to go to about here. We can always do it again if we want. So I can come up here again and go a little further down if I want to. Maybe right there. No, I think it's too dark. So let's take it the whole way off and let's build it up slowly. And I'm thinking maybe right around here, 37%. Here is the before and here is the after. But see how the image is nicely closed off? It's keeping our viewer in the center of the frame here. I think I need to bring up the lightness in my midtones a little bit. I'm going to get rid of my selection first by clicking this icon on the CX or combo panel. I'm going to get a curves adjustment, and to lighten I'm going to use screen. But before I do that, I'm going to put a black mask on there so I don't see it. And now I'll go to a screen blend mode. And now I'm going to use the layer mask mode to sample the right mask. Let's get rid of this properties panel. This is a really great tool. So let's click it. And remember, I want to do midtones. So I could try midtones 1. And as soon as I click it, it will just lighten the midtones. You see that? I could try midtones 2 or midtones 3, but that's way too light. So let's do midtones 1. And let's take a look. Here is the before. And here is after. And I think that's pretty good for now. Remember, we can always go back and retweak. Now that I've lightened the midtones, I've lost a little bit of my darkening in the top or bottom. So I'm going to come back to the bottom of the image and let's increase that opacity a little bit more. And I'm taking it up to 100%. And let's go to the top and see what we got here. So it's at 37%. And I think right there. So here's the bottom before and after. And here's the top before and after. Okay, so pretty good. I'm going to click on the top layer. And how about some soft pop? I always like to try soft pop. I really like it. Open up TK Actions by clicking TK. And let's go for soft pop. Give it a second. Oh, and that looks really cool. I think it's way too strong. So I'm going to take it the whole way off. And now let's build it up slowly. And I think maybe right here at 61%. Here is the before. And here is the after. Again, the before and the after. I like what it's doing to the colors and everything. It's really beautiful in my opinion. And I'm also getting some more texture. Let me go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to click the plus key a few times. And let's take a look at the water down here. See the ripples in the water? Here is the before soft pop and here's after. It just brings out those textures. And I like that. And now we're going to do some dodging and burning, which is really going to make a big impact on this image, especially back in this foggy area. Okay, dodging and burning. Let's X out of this adjust layer mask mode. For dodging and burning, it's going to be freehand. So this is where you really get to use your artist's license. Okay, now let's come to the CX panel and I'm going to grab a burn layer. I'm going to click the left side. This gives me a gray mask with a soft light blend mode. I'll be getting a black brush, and then let's click on the dodge tool. The left side gives us a gray mask, and this time it'll be in the overlay blend mode. I'll start with the overlay blend mode first. Now I have a white brush, and I'm going to change my opacity to like 20% to start out with. And what I want to do is just start picking out some areas and adding a little bit of lightness. You see that? Just like creative highlights in these foggy areas. Think clouds. What does a cloud look like? I want to lower the opacity to 10%, so I'll just type my 1 key. This will help me to build my dodging up slowly. Now remember, every time I lift my brush and paint again, I'll add a little bit more of the dodging effect. So I don't want to just make a blob of white paint on here, okay, a dodge, but I want to make it look like it has some texture to it, okay? And this is what I mean by where you can use your artistic license. So you see how I'm just building up some fog and just have some fun with this. And over in here a little bit in some of these areas. Now the video is sped up. As you can see, I'm just looking for textures that I can bring out. And I'm thinking these should look like cloudy. So I'm thinking let them look like clouds. I want to have highlights in certain areas. And I also changed my brush opacity. I even got it down now to like 5%, and I just typed the 0, 5 keys on my keyboard to get it. And I'm working on some of the reflections in the water and some of the middle areas of fog in here. But this is not that hard to do, but you really got to kind of think it out. You know, you're looking for light areas, and those are the areas that you want to accent. And I even do the sky. I even get some of the areas up in the sky. And I'm varying my brush size and just painting away, and I just about got it. And now I'm back in real time. I'm going to make my brush larger, still at that 5%, and just kind of blend some of these areas, just so there's not really sharp edges, but I just want to make them a little more cloudy, a little more foggy. And by going over that whole area with that 5%, it's just going to smooth things out and make it look a little more misty, so to speak. But I'm just working on this and just trying to blend it. Now, I believe the overall effect is too strong. I'll take the opacity back to 0%, and now we're going to build it up slowly. And I think right about here looks really good. Now, here is the before, and now let's take a look. Here is the after, and yeah, I really like how that turned out. And now for the burning, let's switch over to the burn layer, click on it, and let's make sure we have a black brush. I'm going to start out at 5% and just look for areas I want to darken. Like maybe these trees a little bit more, like this. And again, just have some fun here and decide what you want to accent. And remember, you don't want to over darken things. You just got to be careful here. So I'm going to start in the water. I went ahead and sped the video up, and I'm just grabbing some of these distant trees, just certain ones, just to bring out some darkness in them, just so your eye gets drawn to them. I'm thinking of a painting, you know, certain areas you want to just draw the viewer's eye to, and by burning these areas, it's helping. And I'm also doing the clouds. I'm looking for different areas in the clouds, and this is going to bring out some texture and add some visual interest to the image. Now I'm back. I did a little bit more burning. Here is my before burning, and here is my after. And there's an area over here that I don't like right here. Now here's a little tip for you. Grab gray paint. That's what this brush is here. That's why Tony made this brush. Click it. And remember, we're in a gray layer, so I'm going to go to like 20% and just kind of erase it. Just like that. We can just go in here and erase that effect off of there. And you can even use this at a lower opacity to smooth things out. Just paint over areas that you think are too strong and smooth things out. So that's a little tip for you. Let me shut both of these layers off. Here's before dodging and burning, and now here is after. So hopefully you can see how nice of an effect you can get by utilizing creative freehand dodging and burning. One final step, we're done. Let me go up to the top layer. I'm going to grab a lasso tool. I'm going to type L. I'm going to do a freehand vignette. So I want to add an area, a vignette, freehand vignette, like right around this area to draw your eye right in here. Now come to the TK actions and click on freehand vignette. And I'll just accept the Gaussian blur the way it is and click OK. Now it's way too strong, but before I do that, I'm going to double click right here just to use my blend diff to protect the deepest shadows. And I'm going to drag the shadow slider over to about here, hold the option key down and split it. And this will give us some graduation in here. You know, a nice little feathering, and I'll say okay. Now, of course, it's way too strong, so let's take the opacity and shut it the whole way off and build it up slowly. And I think right here at 19%, here's the before and here's the after. Now, I wish it was a little bit darker right up in this area, so get a white brush at 100% opacity. You can type your 0 key to get you at 100% opacity, and I'm just going to paint like right in here, just to darken this area right up above here just a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. Because basically what I'm trying to do is train my viewer's eye right into this area right in here. Now let's take a look at our overall before and after. Here is our overall before. This is where we started and this is where we ended. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon. That way, every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing!